Good afternoon, everybody. At first, I really want to thank all the organizers of this event because it has been really tremendous time here, like listening and understanding that there are many problems we are facing the same, some of them which are not the same, and really a very inspiring day for me, and also getting to know a lot. And maybe if we start with common problems or issues when it comes to quality and professional journalism nowadays in Latvia, then I would say, of course, the war has also affected us the same way as it was mentioned today. And it's not only about media, newsrooms being working a lot, not having respite from COVID and covering of COVID, also finding totally new ways how do you cover, also facing the same problems as, for example, just finding helmet and some other stuff you never thought you will need, and then going to Ukraine and facing totally different kind of situation, becoming war reporter. And when it comes to the role of journalists, we also have discussions, maybe not such kind of discussion we had here today when it comes to activism. Maybe not so many journalists in Latvia are in activism, but it's more like related to the situation where are we now with the war. Because, of course, we have this Russian language community. We have a lot of Russian exiled media who have fled since starting the war. And we are elections coming in on the October 1st. And it means that this anti-Russia sentiment is used in all the possible and different ways. And as you may have noticed, we removed this very big Soviet monument a couple of weeks ago. And how does it come to this discussion about the role of the media, especially now in this pre-election time, those who are nationalistic parties, and I would say also those who are a bit orientated towards center, they are starting to ask what is the role of media. So can you actually ask the questions? Maybe the monument had some value as art, because there were sculptures. Maybe there were art. Maybe they should have been preserved. And it was already considered as a sin for a journalist to ask this question. It meant that he is not loyal to the country. And of course, this is this big question. Actually. Should she or he just avoid asking those questions? And of course not. So this discussion about the role of journalism is something which is going on also in Latvia, and also reflecting on today. Of course, we also are facing problem of having young, good and professional journalists. And also I could share some anecdotal cases, of course. But I will start with one case which just shows actually that there are ways how, despite all the challenges like lack of money, all the crisis journalism is having, also small countries like Latvia with small media market and so on can do really good and professional job. This is a project called Dakteris vajadzēs noģērbties, which would be doctor, you will need undress yourself. And it started actually just very simply one day. There was a woman who came to the Investigative Journalism Center Baltica and said that she has been bearing it for many years, but that she had visited 4 or 5 years ago a very well-known immunologist in Riga, and that he said that he needs to do some gynecological tests. And only afterwards she understood that actually she has been sexually abused, because no immunologist had to do some gynecological tests which go even deeper than only checking your genitalia. So, and it was, like this story, okay, she went even to police, but police said that there is no case to investigate. And of course, in those cases, journalists always think, is it true, is it not? And they really started from scratch. At the beginning, they started like, look, are there any other women? Yes, they found them. They found them through different kinds of those chats you have online where you are discussing some doctors and so on. And then it turned out that actually there have been also complaints not only to police, but also to Doctors Association, which is actually able to take off licenses for doctors. But both police and this association has been neglecting this issue for years. And what is very important about this issue is that actually this became as a big multimedia project because not only this Investigative Journalism Centre started it, they joined with public service broadcasting, both radio, television, and portal. So it means that there were stories, there were podcasts made, and it was, like this very, very big story in different platforms meant for different audiences, young, old, Russian-speaking, Latvian-speaking, and so on. And of course, at the beginning, they ran those stories, and nothing changed. But what is this good thing about this? That actually all the other media also took this story and kept running stories about this medical council who has been like lazy enough to really to investigate. They were really like asking those medical institutions which were still employing this doctor, why this doctor is still working, and maybe he's still like making some abuse. And this was the thing that those complaints started to come in when those stories were published. And what is this like outcome? That at the end, really, police started criminal procedure, and he will be, I hope, sentenced, and he is not working as a doctor. And of course, from one side, it's classical investigative story, but I would say this is the way we make changes, maybe not with activism, but really with like this joining forces. And I think this is very important trend we can see in the last few years in Latvia, that media are trying to cooperate, especially when it goes to those big stories. And it helps to save resources, it helps to broaden your audiences, and it helps to bring changes. Of course, it's not always easy. I know myself, especially at the beginning when such kind of cooperation started, like there is still, they will steal my audience, they will do this, and they are actually, somebody told me this morning that Lithuanian journalists are criticizing each other all the time. Of course, this is the same in Latvia, but still like seeing this priority and maybe not criticizing every day your colleagues. And when it comes to like, if we think about those most professional islands of journalism in Latvia, then of course we should talk about public service broadcasting, those three entities, television, radio, and portal, which also has the biggest Russian language platform in Latvia, besides of Delfi. So Delfi would complain about this statement. But it's not so maybe rosy, because only last year public service media got rid of advertisements. There is still ongoing process of merging of public service broadcasting, but there are good steps, like a new supervisory council has been created, a new ombud appointed. But what is also this good thing, even if they haven't merged, they are also really working together on different kinds of projects. And one of the biggest and most popular is dod pieci or give me 5, which is Christmas. On Christmas time, they run for 2 weeks radio program, but which is of course now video and podcast and everywhere. And they usually just gather money for some cause, like either it's for cancer patients or for integrating disabled people and so on. And again, it's this issue of cooperating, of integrating this problem in all the possible programs. And it means that for those 2 weeks, each program, like either it's like news program, investigative program, a program who is like covering some family issues, is finding this angle to really, again, bring those changes. And we can see that there have been changes, for example, when it comes to cancer treatment and so on. And of course, as I mentioned, we have a new ombud appointed who is responsible for public service broadcasting. And of course, they will now have this first conference next week, where also Lithuanian ombud will be taking part. And why I'm mentioning it is that the main topic of this conference will be about violence towards journalists, because this is something, I think, also nothing new to your audience, especially women journalists are experiencing these different kinds of bullying and the bots and trolls and so on. But what is the good thing that actually for years we have been different kinds of organizations and media representatives trying to convince police and courts that this is the case and that you have to punish those people, that they have to be taken accountable for this kind of attacks on journalists. And we have had the first case where actually courts decided that this person has been guilty on attacking investigative journalists, because it wasn't only some kind of, internet violence or phone calls. He even went to the office with funeral bouquet and so on. So this is really something which is, I think, very important for each of journalist community to talk about it and to talk to the authorities. Of course, I think it's the same everywhere, and as also Trump was mentioned in the previous presentation, we know that actually some of politicians also like, and if not they themselves, and some of their supporters use the same very dirty techniques. And of course, also when it comes to public service broadcasting, which is this big debate in Latvia, and I would assume everywhere else, is do they represent all the parts of the society? And it is a big issue, and we can see that COVID divided some parts of society. Also, we could see this with a monument where some part of society, although it was the smallest one, didn't feel represented and so on. So this is this big issue, and which still is going to be solved, I hope, someday. And when it comes to government support for professional media, then actually Latvian government has created media support fund, and this year they granted 4.5 million euros to media to implement different kind of projects. But because it's a project-based fund, then it doesn't help media to overcome the most urgent struggles, as finding new business models and also bridging those digital gaps they have, like creating better audience engagement tools and so on. But still, it's a very important support mechanism, especially for for local and regional and hyper-local media who are struggling everywhere because of all those nationalistic sentiments. I already told you, Russian language media or minority media are not eligible to apply for this granting, and this is again this unsolved issue for many years, because tearing down monument doesn't help to integrate this part of the society. So this is all from my side in very short what is happening in Latvia, but I will share information with Rītis and other colleagues. We will have a conference on November 11th in Riga, and we will try to discuss many of those issues in Baltic level.
Okay, thank you very much. And do we have questions? Yes, we do. Yeah.
Hello. You finished with Russian language media, and I wanted to ask you a question about Russian media in Latvia, since we all know Dožd, etc., all there. Do you foresee any challenges, either positive or negative, from Russian media moving to Latvia? Thank you.
Actually, me myself, I've been involved a bit in supporting them, and at first there is this, like big aim on really helping free speech, in Russia, even if it's outside Russia now. But of course, we have been seeing those challenges because it's not so easy for them adapt, although they came to Latvia because there is big part of the population which speaks Russian, it's close to Russia. It's still sometimes they don't understand those some local issues, and that's where they run in problems. But overall we look at it optimistically. Of course, this is this funny thing that some of politicians say, so we closed all the Kremlin propaganda channels, now we have Dožd, now all the problem is solved, which is not true, because we know that Dožd has this very narrow audience, which is mostly like those, like liberal Russians and so on. So overall, we look at it, yes, as addition to some kind of, diversifying of content, and there are also some ideas how could they maybe not only produce content for Russian audiences, but also for those Baltic audiences. But it's still in very early stages, because we have to understand that those people left in hurry. They now have to not only establish newsrooms either in Riga or Amsterdam or Berlin, but also really just find school for their kid, and yes, they have had transfer cat and so on. It sounds very stupid and basic, but really they have a lot in their minds currently.
We have a question over here.
It is kind of similar question. Just I noticed in Russian exile media the discourse that Latvian authorities are taking their decisions because of the elections. For me, it is quite fascinating because I think it is maybe because of the war, and it is kind of moral and so things. And I just wanted to know if this kind of discourse point of view finds its audience in Latvia, among Latvians.
Yes, so it has been actually, especially when monument was teared down, and now with this visa issue, because Dožd, for example, was stating quite clearly that they are opposing any restrictions of visa bans to Russian citizens. And then, of course, it became somehow internal political issue. Look, Dožd actually is Kremlin, because they are not supporting a European view on visa issues. And it was this, we should expel them. But of course, it was more like this, I would really also agree election rhetoric, because it's not this overall opinion. Of course, State Security Service has issued this warning that we have to remember that that there could be some people who have came with this wave of journalists who could maybe, they didn't say it, but what they meant that there could be spies, there could be more some kind of Russian security service activities in Latvia. So, of course, this has been also, for us as a receiving side, those months have been a bit contradictory, sensitive, and elections play a big role because anti-Russia sentiment in Latvia is just huge and crazy. And and so on. But I would say that now it's calming down and both sides are more understanding where they are. And that actually, what is this interesting thing that now also, for example, Dodge people are giving interviews to mainstream media, and one of the main Dodge anchors gave an interview to most popular Latvian women's magazine, and then I just met some people who said, I read this interview, she seems quite normal, so yeah.